Are people there?
Yes, we got lots of people here.
Okay, are we ready to start? I can't see you all.
Absolutely. We'll go ahead and you can begin. Thank you so much.
Great. Hi, so I'm Dr. Koopersmith, and I'm a graduate of Duke University, and then I trained at USC for my OBGYN and fertility training. I've been a board certified gynecologist and fertility doctor for over 30 years. And then several years ago, I did the fellowship in integrative health and medicine. I'm now board certified in that. Training also to get my functional medicine certificate, and just recently became licensed as an erotic blueprint sexuality coach. And today I'm here to talk to you about pleasure, which pleasure really is your birthright. And we'll just also mention that pleasure might even improve your immune system. And I hope this is part one, because I'd like to keep this conversation going. So I wanted you to feel happy because it's the middle of the day, the end of the week. All of us, it's been a long week. You might have been stressed. So I wanted to start again with the happy song, because no one really can feel down when they hear that happy song. And what I really would like to start with as well is a very gentle embodiment practice to help us all get embodied before we have this talk, to have a taste of pleasure while we hear this lecture. So I invite you all, if you can, to close your eyes, but you don't have to do it with closed eyes. And I'd like you to rub your hands together and make some heat with your hands. And then what I'd like you to do is take your hands and just gently put them in front of your face and feel the heat and the warmth. And then gradually move your hands around your face and over the top of your scalp, in front of your forehead, over your eyes, your cheeks, your mouth, your neck. You could gently, so gently touch your face, almost like a feather touching your face. And just touch your face and your hair, your ears, your eyes, the cheeks, and your mouth, and your neck. And now I invite you to change the touch and start at your temples and really massage those temples. Feel the touch. Sink into the touch. Massage your forehead. Massage your scalp. Massage the jaw. Oh, the jaw, it's so tight. Let it go. Massage your cheeks, your chin, your lower jaw, the neck. Oh, the shoulders, the neck and the shoulders. Give your body a really, really good massage. Firm touch. Hug yourself. Massage your upper arms, your lower arms. And massage those hands. They do so much work for us all day long. Massage those hands. And now we're going to take it back up to the head. And way at the scalp, I want you to start scratching. Scratch that scalp. And scratch your forehead, your ears, your cheeks. Scratch across your mouth and your chin, and scratch your neck. Bring it down into your arms and your shoulders. Really feel the nails. Wake up that nervous system with those nails. Might feel different than you're used to. Scratch your hands on the top and on the bottom. And feel into that sensation. And come down your neck and rest one hand on your chest. And for you women in the audience, perhaps it actually is on top of a breast. And with your other hand, if you're in a place where you can and you feel comfortable, perhaps take your other hand and put it on or near your genital area. And now I invite you to sink into your body and take some big, deep breaths. And feel the energy. Feel your face, your neck, your shoulders, your heart center, your stomach, your pelvis, and the energy all the way down into your legs and your feet. And let's take 2 more cleansing breaths and sink into your body on the exhale. And when you're ready, perhaps you can come back into the room and relax, a little more embodied, a little more outside of your head. And I want you to recognize that that first sense of touch was an energetic touch, the second a sensual touch, the third what we call a kinky touch, and the last was a sexual touch. And we'll go on to that later in the talk. I want you all to breathe that really the pandemic is teaching us, perhaps, what Rita Mae Brown said, which is, I finally figured out the only reason to be alive is to enjoy it. And what Elizabeth Gilbert said, Americans have an inability to relax into sheer pleasure. Ours is an entertainment-seeking nation, but not necessarily a pleasure-seeking one. This is the cause of that great, sad American stereotype, the overstressed executive or replace executive with doctor, nurse, health professional, or whatever you do on a day-to-day basis, who goes on vacation but who cannot relax. So I'm here today, and it's a wellness webinar, and we think of it as continuing education. And I'd like you all to think about how many hours you've spent, if you're a health professional, studying medicine, anatomy, physiology. And if you are in a different profession, then you can translate these sentences into your field of study. How many numerous CME or post-grad education lectures and events have you experienced? How much articles have you read to further your knowledge, participating in webinars and other continuing education? And on the flip side of that, is it really continuing education if we talk about pleasure? How many of you ever had a discussion, a true discussion about anatomy and sex with your parents? How many of you had more than a cursory education on this in high school? And how many of you have ever gone beyond sort of what you learn on the fly in terms of further education on erotic energy or sexuality? Just reflect on that for a moment. Furthermore, how many of you have a life that you could tell your friends is full of fulfilling and passionate sex? How many of you have experienced trauma or abuse, especially in this arena? 1 in 4 women, 1 in 5 men, they say, have experienced this. And how many of you have a touch of shame or embarrassment around this topic? It's a topic we do not talk about in America. So I want to say that as an integrative practitioner, we have a systems approach to wellness, a teamwork approach to health. We say that the patient is an expert on their body and the doctor acts as an ally and a coach. And our goal is to help people find their route to their best health. And our goal is to use a diverse set of tools and therapies and not just stick to one set of tools. I liken the system, our humanity, our human system, to a tree. And I like to think of the branches and the leaves as the organ systems. The trunk is really our rock, our center. And our roots help us absorb the nutrients, the water. The leaves too help us absorb water and solar energy. And what we know about trees, right, is they flourish with the right nutrients, soil, and energy. Like Goldilocks, They need water, but not too much or too little. And each plant actually has a different requirement for how much water. We need, and how much sun. Some thrive in the rainforest and others in the desert. We need the right nutrients, vitamins, minerals, macronutrients, foods, and supplements. We need sunlight and energy. Trees need energy to grow, and so do we. We need sunlight and nature to prosper, and we need to feed our soul as well. And we need to live in harmony with the insects and critters and microbiome in symbiosis and make sure there's no parasites. But we also need to live in harmony with the other trees and the other animals in our environment. Western medicine, I feel, puts Band-Aids on the leaves and the branches with pills and surgery and forgets to address the center of the tree. And functional medicine suggests we concentrate way more on the tree trunk and the roots and the energy sources, as well as ensuring that the microbiome and the environment is working for us and not against us. So I think of a human, like in Eastern traditions, that we have 4 bodies. We have our physical body, our mental body, our emotional body, and our energetic body. And we need to feed all of our bodies. So functional medicine, again, the organ systems are around the outside, and the center of our matrix is our mental, emotional, and spiritual center. Our physical body, in a sense, is our skin sac and our organs, our human DNA, and our microbiome. It's our gut brain. Our mental body, it's our thoughts, our ego, our superego, our patterns of behaviors and habits. It's our brain, maybe our consciousness, but I'm not sure. Our emotional body is our emotions, and our energetic body is the energy field that surrounds our body, but it's also deep inside our spirit, our deep essence, our sixth sense. And we need to focus on that center, and we need to find our meaning and purpose in life, and we need to fill our life with energy that rejuvenates us. So we in medicine have these, what do you need to do to be well, right? And again, in America, these wellness guidelines end up becoming to-do lists. But humans learn best through play and experiential learning. And that's making these guidelines fun and pleasure. And so I want to present what we need to do in self-care as daily pleasure tools. So if we're feeding our center and we're feeding our physical body, we need to move our body. We know that sitting is the new smoking, and that moving our bodies is critical to wellness. And we need to look at exercise more as play and pleasure, and rather than work. Similarly, to feed the center, we need to feed and exercise our mental body. We need to check in with our brain and our thoughts. And we need to separate from those thoughts. We need to know that we are so much more than our collective thoughts. We have over 60,000 thoughts in a day, and over 60 to 80% of those are recycled thoughts from yesterday. So we are so much more than our thoughts, but our ego hijacks us and tries to control our 4 bodies. So meditation is a way to build that mental muscle and change the brain. But it shouldn't be work, and you shouldn't meditate for a specific outcome. Meditation is about living in the present, not in the past where we're stuck in anger, and not in the future when we're worried and fearful. Meditation should be blissful and easy. It should give us joy and relaxation. And we need to stop meditating for that outcome and really do it just to connect inward and stay present. Our emotional body. So this is an interesting one. We need to realize that emotions are energy in motion. And we often talk about positive emotions and negative emotions. In my heart math certification, I learned instead to talk about energizing emotions and depleting emotions. And humans have all emotions. And we need to recognize that. We need to do things that allow the energy to move through us. So we all know it's okay to laugh, and we're allowing humor and the laughter and the joy to come through us. Some of us cry and let the sadness run through us, but others hold that back, right? So we need to learn techniques to move the emotions through us. We can cry, we can punch a pillow, we can punch a punching bag. Some people move emotions through exercise. Some people are okay, but they need to scream and wail, and some journal and paint and do music and listen. And all those actions can be ways to move emotion for us. There are also techniques that therapists and other trainers can teach us that can move emotions through us. So people use tapping, people use integrating polarities, people use cognitive behavioral therapy. There's a kind of communication, which is a dyad communication. There are other, I call it aspexis or trauma release processes. All these are techniques developed to help us move our emotions through us so that we can indeed not get stuck in our emotions, because when our emotions stay stuck in our body, it often leads to dis-ease or disease. And now we're back to the energy, and again, that is the center of our matrix. We need to pour energy into the soul. And we need to also put up walls and not let everybody else's negative energy come into us, right? So it's really important that we do both, allow the good energy in and prevent the bad energy from coming in. So a lot of our self-care, whether it's outside in nature, meditation, movement, connection with others, and hobbies, are things that really give us pleasure. They feed our erotic soul, and they're great ways to regenerate energy. So what I want to turn to next, is sex and erotic energy as sex. Because really, what one activity exercises all four bodies at once? What is energy at its core if it's not all erotic energy? It's crucial for our nervous system. It is our energy source. And when we access all those other practices, nature, meditation, and exercise, and recognize we're feeding our erotic energy, we see pleasure and self-care as a form of feeding our erotic energy. It's all sexual energy. When we think about sex in the Western sense, we think about bedroom sex, and we think about a release. A man gets into a woman and there's a release of tension. In the Eastern philosophies and tantric sex, they actually talk about sex as a regenerating energy. It is not a release of energy, but rather a circular regeneration of energy. And the female heart center and breast center is a positive electromagnetic pole that is then transferred to the male's heart center, which is a negative pole. He then moves the energy down through his chakras and into his penis, which is a positive pole, which then returns it back to the female into her negative center in the vagina, and on it goes. So in the Eastern tradition, sex is a way to regenerate energy. Sex also is physical exercise. It's intimacy and connection. It can heighten your energy and pleasure. And I want to remind people that sexual care of your body doesn't even have to be with a partner. It can absolutely be done by yourself. So sex can be a key to wellness and improved immunity. If you have intimacy and connection, you get more oxytocin hormone and more bonding. When there's touch, the body relaxes. Think about how you felt at the beginning of this talk. When you move your body, it's pleasurable movement. And that we know exercise is good for the immune system. If we have that release of tension with an orgasm, we can relax into it. Sexuality is fun and laughter, and we can actually transcend other spaces, and that's a meditation and an altered state of consciousness. A brief perusal of the literature goes on and on and on about changes in the immune system as it relates to different times of when you're having sex, different times in the menstrual cycle, as it relates to the reproductive system, as it relates to getting pregnant, which obviously is an outcome of sex. So again, sex and the immune system, we can increase prolactin and oxytocin. We can modulate antibody levels. We can modulate testosterone levels. All of this feeds back into the immune system, as well as feeds back to all our other organ systems. So now you know that at the center of the matrix is a key to keeping all the organ systems healthy. And we understand that it's important and it's relevant. But now I want to say, well, but why don't we talk about this when we go to the doctor? And I want to say, as health professionals, a lot of times we are so used to talking about things and being the expert. A lot of health professionals don't talk about nutrition because they were never taught about nutrition. So they discount it because they don't really want to feel less than expert in the office. Well, that same goes for sex, but we don't have to be the experts. We also want to remember that bringing this up, a lot of patients have experienced trauma, and even our health professionals may have shame and trauma. And so they have this awkwardness and they're sitting in discomfort and they don't know how to bring it up. And then sometimes they trigger problems with the patient and they don't know how to communicate, and then they're scared to bring it up because they're scared of all the fallout. But we need to start to ask our clients about their sexuality, because it is at the center of the matrix. And we need to recognize we don't have to be the experts. We can refer people to coaches, to somatic therapists, and there are even sexological body workers. They're not illegal workers. These are people well-trained in somatic therapy to help people move through shame and trauma, as do the coaches. We need to practice complete non-judgment. What fulfills me erotically may not fulfill you erotically. And again, as long as we're talking about consenting adults and it doesn't hurt anybody in the process, we should not judge people. And we need to recognize that even our images of what is beauty and not beauty, that people who we don't look at as sexual beings, we are all sexual beings. So it's critical that we bring this to everybody. And we need to even look at our intake forms in the office, because we may turn people off from talking about their sexuality just by our questions on the form. Even the she, he, they dichotomy is really important. And I think it's really important for us to go deeper and personally do our own work to clear the shame, taboo, and discomfort around this topic if we're really going to take the whole society higher and have this conversation. So I got involved in this really by happenstance. I was invited to visit Jayama's conference. I got a free ticket, so I went. And she has described, she's a 20-year sexuality teacher and studier and has her master's. And she has put together a language of sexuality. She describes stages of sexuality. You are in resting or healing or curiosity, adventurous or transformative stages. And you can be in different stages in the same day or in different times in your life. Everybody has a blueprint or a sex language. Some of you may have heard about love languages. We are all wired, our nervous systems are wired differently and uniquely, and we fall into typically a blueprint. And again, we're all unique. We could have different mixes of different blueprints, but in general, there are 5 main blueprints, and they actually correlate, I think, to our 4 bodies, and the 5th is a mixture of all 4. And then we, of course, have obstacles to health, biochemical, physical, mental, etc. If we have a new language, we can start communicating to people in their language. And that can actually take us, it's higher communication. And if we have better communication, energy is regenerated and not depleted. And it's beyond the scope of today's talk to go into a complete teaching of all the blueprints. I'm just going to highlight it a little bit. But I want you to understand that each blueprint, it is so much more than just how they like sex. It's really about how their nervous system is wired. And when you start to learn these blueprints and learn that different people are wired differently, I can look at a child and recognize that I need to talk to them slightly differently, or my patients differently, because they hear things differently. Their nervous systems are wired differently. Their triggers are going to be different. And we communicate through touch, through words, through body language, vocal tone, verbal, nonverbal language. Our body reactions can be different even than our brain thoughts. We communicate sexually and non-sexually, and all these blueprints have sort of their positive and negative charge, their superpowers and their shadows. So the first is the energetic. And if you liked, I can't see everybody. It's kind of frustrating. I don't know how to make my screen show you. I'd love to be able to have people raise their hands so I can see. But if you like that first touch, that anticipatory, energetic, barely touching your face at the beginning, the energetic gets aroused with super light touch, the anticipation, the longing for things to happen. They can orgasm without even being touched. They may prefer being barely touched. Just thinking about how the night is going to go may be how they These people are very sensitive, both physically and emotionally. They're very intuitive. They can connect super deeply on a spiritual level. As they go higher, people around them go higher. But they're also hypersensitive, and can short circuit really easily. And they can be overloaded and have emotional baggage from everyone else around them and in their family. Now, the sensual is a different blueprint, and the sensual is about taking in through all your senses. And they live in a world of sensuality, of body awareness, and have incredible capacity for pleasure. Their erotic energy is aroused by a beautiful sunrise, sunset. Imagine a fine wine, an amazing massage. When you were massaging your face, did you just sink into that massage of your face, of your shoulders, of your arms? They have a great capacity for pleasure. They have a great aesthetic for beauty. They can feel orgasmic just from being in a beautiful surroundings, right? They unfortunately can also get stuck in their head, and they find it hard to access their body when they get stuck in their head. They can be very picky. They can have an aversion because they're so sensitive to their environment. If something smells off, if a room is messy, they can get worried about things. They can be very persnickety. And that's sort of the sensual. The sexual is just what it sounds, straight and forward. And most sex in the Western media thinks like the sexual. Everything is presented. It's naked bodies, it's porn, it's sex, it's penetrative sex, and there's an outcome, which is orgasm. So these people need to release energy and need to have sex just to relax. The sensual needs to relax just to have sex. In our Western thought, we pigeonhole women and think of them as sensual and pigeonhole men as sexuals, but that's off. Your nervous system is not gender created. These people are so focused on the end goal, they miss the journey. They need the orgasm, they need the outcome. They can become very self-focused and forget that actually the sexual experience and pleasure itself is an experience, and that we can have pleasure through all the things I mentioned before: meditation, exercise, a nice sunrise, a great bottle of wine. And now we get to the kinky, which the name implies, oh my God, I don't want to be kinky. That's taboo, right? And the kinky is really all about the taboo. It's people who like to break the rules, right? Things that are forbidden. And everybody's level of what is taboo is different. So if you grew up in an environment where we didn't talk about sex, then just talking about sex today is almost really kinky, and maybe it got you really excited. So kinky can be all the way out into what we in America think of kinky sex and bondage and sex play and ropes and chains, but it also can be, oh my God, I had sex before I was married. And that can bring shame and embarrassment, and that's their negative. They can be very full of shame because they actually get excited by things that they've been told are taboo and wrong. They are super creative. They may be, I don't know if all of Hollywood are kinky, right? But these people are, have a very large sexual vocabulary. They're totally creative. They love to play. And they actually are really good at having consent containers and remembering to ask permission. Can I do this or this or this? because so much is off limits. They got to know what is in limits, and they play to their edges, which is great. Sometimes they get stuck in their fantasies and their fetishes, and sometimes they push too far in their edges. There's both a physical kink and a psychological kink. And we all know that some people really like power dynamics. And if you're a big time executive and you have so much pressure on you all day long, when you go to the bedroom, you may just want to lie there and receive because you need to be refilled up. And so again, we need to be non-judgmental about this and understand that this is okay. And the shapeshifter is basically a nervous system that is wired to need it all, feel it all, and float between all the languages. They are fluent in all the languages. They can be extraordinary lovers, but they also can be, people feel that they're too much. They take over, they take up so much energy, but they also need so much to feel full and complete. And that's the shapeshifter. And what we need to understand is that when we start to see this, we see that this erotic language and these sex languages play out in all parts of our lives, not just in the bedroom, and how we communicate and how we perceive other people's energy and go through life is filtered through our thoughts, body sensations, images, which is our nervous system. And we all have a right to live an embodied life. And we can do this by consciously tapping into all four of our bodies, prioritizing self-care. And self-care needs to include what feeds us. And this needs to be all kinds of pleasure. And so we need to recognize as health professionals that, and patients, right, that we need to open up the conversation about sex. We should be encouraged to talk about it, to learn about our bodies, learn about what gives you pleasure, and learn how to communicate what gives you pleasure in and outside the bedroom, because it's going to bring you higher. We need to expand our toolbox. We don't just need psychologists and therapists. We can have sex classes, sex education, videos, books that are not porn, but true erotica. We can practice non-judgment, and we are doing our patients a disservice by perpetuating old habits of not talking about self-pleasure and sex and erotic energy. So I want to open this up to what were your wins, insights, and learning from today's talk. And I want you to reflect on these questions. Do you have the passionate, fulfilling sex life that you want? And would you like to talk further? And I can help you go further with that. Would you like to learn more about how to talk to your patients about their eroticism? And if you just want to learn how you can actually send your patients or your clients or your friends to coaches and educators, I'm opening to giving all of that out as well. So I just want to leave you with this: 9 requisites for contented living. Health enough to make work a pleasure, wealth enough to support your needs, strength to battle with difficulties and overcome them, grace enough to confess your sins and forsake them, patience enough to toil until some good is accomplished, charity enough to see some good in your neighbor, love enough to move you to be useful and helpful to others, faith enough to make real the things of God, and hope enough to remove all anxious fears concerning the future. And I'm going to stop my screen share and open it up for questions.
Thank you so much. Thought I'd come on and say hi. Do you see the Q&A feature there? We don't have any questions in there, but there is a chat if you want to look.
Let me look at the chat. I still don't see anybody else to participate.
It's a webinar. Their videos aren't shown.
Oh, got it. There you go. That's why.
Yes.
I totally forgot.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So do you see the chat, David?
I do. I'm looking where people are from.
And we definitely would welcome any questions. If you see the Q&A feature at the bottom, if you have a specific question you'd like to ask. Tina here. Oh, Beth
Any
is
books?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. I should bring them all from downstairs. So there's Come As You Are by Emily Nagowski. There's Tantric Orgasm Oh, I might have to run upstairs. I forget the authors. Cuff Tied and Satisfied by Jaya Ma. Blah, blah, blah. Extended Massive Orgasm by a couple that I'm blanking on their names. I've read them all like recently.
But if you have a list you'd like to share, we can definitely share that with our participants, those that are here. And
okay, yeah, I will. I can send that out later. I'll make the list. That sounds great.
That'd be great. Well, there's some more questions coming in.
The best way to get in touch with our feelings and learn about our blueprints and our inner self. Well, if you really want to dive into the blueprints, there is an online video course. You can contact me for information about how to get access to it. You can go online and take the Blueprint Personality Quiz, and that is one way to find out what your blueprint is. Remember that that is actually what your brain thinks your blueprint is. So it's your ego answering the questions. And as a coach, we actually take you through a pleasure practice to have you experience all forms of touch. And so that you learn actually what your nervous system and your body responds to, which is a little more accurate to really find out what which blueprint you are based on your nervous system. And so the Erotic Blueprint course is out there. And teenagers. I do see teenagers, and I actually am going to be putting together a webinar or a Zoom call probably. I want to put one together. I'm going to start probably with 20-somethings and then bring it down to teenagers, because I think it is so important for people to understand themselves and understand what we learn in the sex coaching community is the biggest thing is having a consent container and protecting your body and always asking for consent. And if we can teach that to teenagers, so number one, they can understand that they can say no at any time, that they need to constantly ask for consent, that their body is their body, and to not feel pressured. I think we can grow in our society and teach. There's so many young kids that are learning about sex from porn, and the data is staggering. It prevents them from enjoying sex in real life. They can't get orgasms from real sex, and they don't know how to communicate. And they think what the porn industry is portraying is accurate and in real life, and it's not. And so, yes, I will get back on books on that.
And it's filling that space as a vacuum. Those resources aren't there for our young people. And so they turn to pornography, obviously, which is part of the problem. We need to get those resources out to them.
Absolutely.
And I see a question here from Youssef about what are the best ways to start the conversation in the office to be respectful of the patient's limits. I don't know if you saw that one up.
I may have missed that. That's great. I'm a gynecologist, so I think people are expecting it a little bit more from me. But I think number one of the simplest ways is if you have an intake form with new forms or their yearly form, to actually put it on there. Is there anything in your sex life you would like to discuss? Similarly, in my bathroom, when we collect urine cups, we have a sign that says if you're experiencing abuse in the home, use the red marker, not the black marker. So we know to bring it up when we go into their room that they're not feeling safe. You can put something in a bathroom that says if you want to bring up sexual concerns, put a star on your urine cup or whatever, if you're uncomfortable bringing it up yourself. You can also just say, I believe in self-care as taking care of all your needs. Your needs include sexuality. Is there anything you would like to discuss? Very similar if you've learned about the ACEs study when we ask about childhood trauma. And it's all well and good to get them to fill out a questionnaire about childhood trauma. And then you're like, well, what do I do with this? Oh my God, they've had so much trauma. And yet the man who did the study, and I'm blanking on his name, in San Diego out of Kaiser, found that just by saying, and how does that affect you as an adult now, you lower their incidence of illness and visits to the doctors by like 30% in the first year. And so again, just putting the question out there, is there anything you'd like to discuss about your sexuality now or in the future? Please know that I'm available or can have resources for you. Also gets you off the hook that you don't have to answer. But if they have questions, you can say, you know what, I don't have the answer. Let me find out for you, right? And very simple question. As a male white psychologist, I can easily imagine kinds of queries leading to complaints against me. Again, I think if you leave it open-ended and you just say, I know that erotic energy and pleasure and sexuality are important to health. Is there anything you would like to discuss with me? I don't really understand how that can be taken in the wrong way. And maybe you put a caveat. I've been taught at wellness webinars that sexuality is important to our health. I am bringing this up only to ask, is it something you would like to discuss? So again, you are ensuring that you're not coming on to your client or bringing it up to make them feel uncomfortable. Or again, you can put it on a paper and have them, and you can write out the sentence. I have learned that addressing your erotic energy questions and answers is important to your wellness. Is there anything you would like to discuss or like me to give you resources to pursue further if you don't want to discuss them with me? So again, you're ensuring that they're not taking it as a male protagonist coming on, right? Someone asked for the URL, and I will have to share that later. I don't have it easily accessed. I have not read your long erotic weekend, so I cannot address that. Intimacy, at what age should you bring it up? I am in the position that if people are coming to me, well, again, it's easier. Once girls have their period, I think when they hit their teen years at 12 or 13, it is so reasonable to say, now is a time for change. And you're entering into a new phase of your life. And we know that you may not get all your questions answered at home or in the schoolroom. Where would you like to discuss further things about sexuality? And that gives them the out of saying, oh, I'm so not ready to discuss that. Like, ew, no. Or, oh, this boy at school is pressuring me to do A, B, and C. Yes, can I ask, right? So I always ask 12 to 13-year-olds if they're interested in dating. Absolutely. And preferences. Perfect. That's so great. I do think it's really important at some age, and again, around middle school, 12, 13, to have some time with the child without their parent, because there's a lot of discomfort sometimes in the parental unit. So again, maybe I used to get kicked out of the room when my boys were getting examined by the pediatrician, when they were examining the genitalia, and that's a good time to bring up questions with the children. So food for thought.
And there is another question actually in the Q&A feature. I don't know if you see that.
Let me see. Additional comments on orgasm. It's everybody's right to try and have one, is what I would say. But what I would also say is the orgasmic experience and the journey is oh so much more important than the be-all end-all finish, if you will. And if we start focusing on the experience and learning our body and teaching people it's okay to spend time alone, learning what kinds of touch they enjoy, learning to look at their genitals, learning to name their genitals, learning to not be ashamed of their bodies, that there is no one flavor of genital, in a sense. I have teenagers coming to me wanting labioplasties because their genitals, they've been told by their boyfriends they have ugly labia. Like, I'm sorry, I thought breast implants was a problem until I had teenagers literally wanting to have surgery to change the look of their labia. We have to change the conversation and recognize the Body is Not an Apology is a beautiful book. It's a tiny short book about the acceptance of one's body. And if we all could practice radical self-love and acceptance of our body, we would stop having judgments of other people's bodies and have better connection and acceptance and communication. There is a good website, OMGS, which you can buy as a subscription. There's now season 1 and season 2. And it is, women actually have put it together, and there are videos to teach other women what works for them in getting an orgasm. What works for the people on the video may not work for you. That's why I love the blueprints, because everybody's body is so incredibly different, and they make a lot of assumptions on the website, and yet it is a good website. More chats, menopause and sexuality. You know, people think that sex ends when we get older, and it can only get better as we have more wisdom and more intimacy and connection. And it is critical to address the issues that are occurring at the time of menopause to improve on your own sexuality. For some women, when they can't get pregnant anymore, it's like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever, right? I don't have to worry anymore about having another child, because they've had a lot of anxiety about not having kids. For other women, obviously, there is side effects of not having hormones around, and they need to address those to ensure that pleasure persists. And relationships can get dry, old, and stale. And we need to learn how to rekindle the flame and change the flame. For some people, it's all about the children when they're raising kids, and all of a sudden the kids leave, and the mom and dad are looking at each other like, oh, who are you, right? And they're trying to recreate their relationship again because they let it slide. And that it undermines sometimes their sexuality, or they never addressed their sexuality before they had children. And now there's no longer the buffer zone. So what's happening in your social life impacts your sexual life. What happens in your sexual life absolutely feeds back to your social life. And it all feeds into your work life, because if you are not satisfied and filled up, if you are laden with negative energy because you're not getting your needs met at home, you are not going to thrive in your work life, your social life, in all your life. We have the ability to thrive, and we need to help ourselves and our clients, our patients, learn how to thrive. And, again, self-touch, self-massage, the monkey data says when the monkeys had a choice between their parents were taken away, the mom was taken away, and they had an artificial monkey that gave milk and an artificial monkey that gave cuddles and hugs. All the monkeys went to the cuddles and hugs over eating. Touch and communication and being seen is what we all crave. Think about the 1-year-old, the 2-year-old, look at me, right? Think about a baby being swaddled or cuddled, right? We need touch. Think about what we're all having problems with in this pandemic. We're stuck at home and we're not giving hugs to our friends and our family, and our mental health is deteriorating. So we need to learn how to touch ourselves, and we can have sex with ourselves, just like I said, that tiny little beginning when all we did was touch our bodies and touch our face, and we embodied pleasure. It's very simple and yet so complicated.
And there's another question in the chat there about training courses.
Well, I'll tell you, the Erotic Blueprint course is given, and I think it's an amazing training to teach about sexuality. And each Erotic Blueprint coach has her own programs, and not just she, there are he's too. So there are numerous courses out there that teach. There's also, I learned about Jaya's work through a woman named Mama Gina in New York. She has several books, and she speaks much more to female pleasure and sexuality. Layla Martin does a lot on consent and sexuality. So there are oodles and oodles of people out there doing this work, and health coaches absolutely are welcomed into these communities, and to learn more, to become, either to work with a coach just so you can do your work with more education, or to fully become a coach yourself.
Well, thank you so much. I don't know if there's any other questions coming in or not. This was amazing. We learned so much about a lot of really important, often undiscussed subject matter. So this was wonderful. And I'm going to just quickly share here how everyone can stay in contact with us. And we will get some resources sent out to everyone who attended here. You'll receive that email, and take good care of yourselves and keep our community connected. Thank you so much to everyone who joined.
Wash your hands, wear your mask, and again, just massage your body in whatever way felt good.
Thank you.